Chronicle is our most expansive synth plugin to date. It takes the sounds from 3 key analog synthesizers, which is the Moog Model D, the Mother 32, and the Juno 106, and allows you to layer them and combine them in ways that allow you to create fat, massive, analog sounding synth sounds that use real hardware synths. It has lots of additional editing controls, such as a sequencer, an arpeggiator, different saturation modules, and also the option to choose between legato, mono, and polyphonic modes within Kontakt. It really sounds like a classic but simple analog synthesizer. Chronicle also has absolutely loads of presets included in the box. It has 250 patches. So let me show you some of the features. So here we are inside the UI of Chronicle. I've just loaded up this preset, which is called Keys Back in Time. As you can see on the left hand side, this is where all the presets live. We've got the ARPs, bass, FX, keys, lead, pad, and polyphonic. Let's go through the main controls. So if you've bought one of our synths or one of our instruments in the past, you might be quite familiar with the way we've laid things out. For example, with our piano plugin, we have a similar thing where we have these kind of main controls at the bottom. But within Chronicle, we've actually got 2 more additional menus that you can dive into. Let's go with the main tab to begin with, where you have the main low pass filter control. You've got a phaser, a chorus. You've got the classic detune controls that you expect on many of our instruments. Then you have a resonance knob for the low pass filter. We have the spread, which allows you to spread the voices across the stereo field or bring them into a tight mono sound. With the dynamics knob, it allows you to go from something which sounds very solid, where all the volumes of the notes are basically the same, to something which sounds softer and allows you to kind of work more with velocities, so that when you press a key, it can sound really soft if you press it softly, or it can sound very loud if you press it hard. And we have the echo and reverb controls on the right. And then we've also got this grain style knob. For those of you that have Nisu, you might have seen a similar thing to this before, but essentially we have a grain layer within Chronicle, and it allows you to change the way that it presents itself. So at the moment, I have it as layered, which means that the noise will play with the sound. But if I was to turn that to constant, then that always plays in the background. And then we've got the layers tab here. We've got 2 ADSRs available. The first one is for volume, and the second one is for the filter. You can control how much the filter is affected using this envelope knob down here. At the bottom down here, we have the heart of Chronicle, which is these layer 1, layer 2, and noise type options. With the layer 1, it allows you to select one of the source sounds that we've provided, either from the Model D, the Juno 106, or the Mother 32. You can then combine that with a secondary sound using layer 2 options, and you can tune them from 1 octave down to 1 octave up. You then get fine controls down here, which allow you to tweak the tuning of each layer just ever so slightly, so that if you want to create something which sounds quite wide, then you detune those 2 sounds ever so slightly different from one another. And then that just gives it a little bit of width that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise. Over here with the noise control, as I just shown, we have the noise, which can either be layered with it or running in the background all the time. And then the volume of that noise layer is controlled here. And then the tune of that as well. If you want something that's very high, then you can do that. Really low. There's also an option at the bottom here, which allows you to decide whether or not this noise layer is actually run through the low pass filter or not. So if I turn this on, then you'll find that the noise layer is hiding inside the low pass. But when you turn it off, then it will kind of go above it, which allows you to add a little bit of bite to some sounds with it pushing through and past the filter. On the right hand side here, we've got the arpeggiator. Now, we've had arpeggiators in our synths in the past, however this one has a lot more control over how you use it. So once I turn it on, I can use these controls here to change the characteristics of the sound. I can go so that the play order goes in up, so it goes from the lowest note to the highest note. And then I think I'll probably want the filter ADSR to be doing a lot of the work here. At this point, we can make it sound more interesting by adding additional octaves to the arpeggiator's note range, and then allowing it to strike more than one time for each octave, and then adding swing. Then we get to the final page of Chronicle. Here we've got saturation on the left hand side. This allows you to change the shape of the saturation applied. When in the middle section, the saturator will generally not do very much, but when you move it to either side, it will change the shape of the saturation curve. You've got 3 types of saturation to choose from here, so you can select between kind of different styles. If you want something that's a little bit just kind of warm and classic, then you can go for the normal one. But if you want something that can kind of crush your sound, then there's options for that too. The bottom left here, we've got the control to change between poly, mono, and legato mode. I think this is a really important part of what makes Chronicle sound so interesting, because if I want to go to legato, I can then turn on the glide control here, and it adds a lot of dust, and it just allows it to sound quite cool in the context of, you know, an old monophonic synthesizer. Let's try another preset. Now we have some additional controls that help you to make the sound more interesting and add modulation. So we have an LFO down here. It can either be in synced mode or free mode, and essentially allows you to add a modifier to the filter, the volume, or the pan controls. So at the moment you can see that the filter is turned up ever so slightly. Let's turn it to sine mode. On the right hand side, we've got another LFO, which allows you to basically change the way that the primary LFO works. So if I add this in, then you can get some more interesting sequenced effects added to the sound. And on the bottom right here, we have a high pass filter. So if you want to add a little bit of retro loveliness to the sound, then you can engage the high pass filter using this cutoff knob. Let's try a few more presets.